Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the second most hyped podcast to record Wednesday night in the Lashing Out Podcast. My name is Jarrod Prugar, joined by Kevin Quigley. Kevin, let's get right into it. Penn State's backfield is impressive. Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, two bona fide starting running backs. They're going to both set the standard for Penn State for rushing yards and eclipse it. And they both could honestly find themselves atop the record list. It's a good problem to have, but it's going to be interesting to see if they can stay healthy throughout the entirety of the season.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is another key part and a key position group for Penn State, as they're both seniors. They were both draft eligible last year, and both of them together decided to return to school for the final year. They're in the Drew Aller category. They're in the I don't really think DDS was maybe a draft candidate, but definitely maybe a Zaki Wheatley. A lot of the seniors that came back, they didn't need to. Like, their draft status was what it was, especially running backs. Both of them have close to 3,000 yards already in their college career. And if you're a running back, like, mileage is limited. You're not a quarterback. You're not going to play 17, 18, 19 years. Like, the Frank Gore experience is gone. It's a lot of 7, 8, 9, 10-year careers. Le'Veon Bell, he barely gets to his second contract, mishandles that, and he's out of the league in 2 or 3 years. There's that kind of story, and very rarely do you even see like the Saquon Barkley who gets better in his second contract. So for these two guys to both commit back to the program, I think it speaks a lot to that. It speaks a lot to their character, but also, like, both of these guys are hungry. Both had 1,000 yards last year, granted in 15 games, so they had a lot more opportunities to do that. But yeah, I think both are on the Doak Walker award watch list for the top running back in the country. I think both of them have a legitimate shot to be there just because of name recognition, talent. The shared backfield probably is a little tough. Like, it's not the Ashton Genty where you're getting 28, 30 carries a game. But Katron, I think, had a really good season last year. I think he made a lot of progress. Nick, maybe, I don't want to say regressed, because I think he became more consistent. He lost kind of that home run threat that he had his freshman and sophomore season. You didn't have the 50, 60, 80-yard runs like he had in his freshman season. I think he lost a little bit of that explosiveness. But if you look back at some of the games, like, just remembering what happened, like, he's one tackle away on a lot of those runs, from the 5 to 8 yard runs. It's one missed tackle by a linebacker and he's gone to the house. So I think there was a lot of potential there, and I think both of them are poised for an excellent season coming up.
It's a great spot for Penn State to be in. Both are right around the 500 carry mark. Nicholas Singleton comes into the year with 499 carries. Katron Allen, 559 carries. But it's going to be interesting, dealing with that backfield. I think they're going to end up being a little bit more fresh towards the end of the season, which is good, especially with as long as these seasons can be now, with Penn State potentially going deep into the college football playoff and those sorts of things. But the biggest thing this year throughout training camp is the battle for the number 3 spot. And that has been the number one battle, I think, in camp. Everybody knows, what's going on with the receiver. They just don't know what's going to go on, when they get out in the field. But that number 3 spot for running back is something that James Franklin mentioned at practice Tuesday night. He talked about, somebody not taking the lead for it. And a lot of it comes down to availability. And a lot of these guys are struggling to get on the field due to injuries. You got Quentin Martin, you got Corey Smith, you got Cam Wallace. Cam Wallace, season ended last year due to injury, which set the stage for Corey Smith and Quentin Martin. Both guys are redshirt freshmen. They've got the skill set, and they've got the ability. They're about the same build. They're a little lighter than Singleton and Allen, but again, it's a good problem to have. It's just finding out that guy that's going to take that step and be that third guy, and that's going to be the most important guy, I think, in the backfield. Because what if something does happen to Nicholas Singleton? What if something does happen to Katron Allen? Who's going to be that guy to fill in, when those guys, if those guys were to get hurt.
Yeah, and it was Corey Smith that had that really long run against Washington last year in the whiteout, and I think he even like tweaked his hamstring or something towards the end. I was on the sideline with a couple former players, and they were both kind of just laughing at him, like cramping up. He's like, "Yeah, by about that time of the run, the alumnus was running down the sideline a little bit, holding his hamstring." So that was pretty cool thing to see. But Quentin Martin, yeah, he's battled some injuries. He battled some injuries last year. Cam Wallace had the season ender. So Corey Smith probably was the most available of those three. But I think Quentin Martin probably came with the most promise out of those three battling for the 3 spot. Um, but yeah, if Nick or Katron get banged up, like both of them are more than capable of becoming that feature back. But having that third person in the room is certainly going to be key. And if you got 3 guys vying for 1 spot, is it too many cooks in the kitchen? Maybe, but also like hopefully, they start vying for it, because if somebody gets nicked up, they're running backs. It's an injury prone position. You're taking a lot of hits. You're in the dirty areas of the field, so it's always a possibility. And if you're one of those 3, like you want to be that next man up, and maybe no one has set themselves apart yet, but once that season gets going, you got the soft schedule to start: Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. Um, there's going to be opportunities for somebody to clearly make a statement, and it's just going to be a matter of who out of those 3 can make the best impression.
If there's ever a position on the field that you need depth and you need able-bodied guys, it is the running back position. It's one of the most physical on the field. Having 3, 4, 5 guys that you can intermix. The biggest thing is, can whoever's that third back is going to be, can they be a factor in the passing game? That's going to be huge. That's how Singleton is used a lot too. But Penn State's in a really good spot in the running back room. That's a position group. Now it's Stan Drayton, who's the running backs coach, which is a little bit different now that Jaywan Snyder is at Notre Dame. So that's probably the most consistent position group that Penn State has had in recent memory, solely because of the consistency of Snyder being there. But now he's, off the greener pastures and for the Fighting Irish. And now it's Stan Drayton, who has a lot of experience as a head coach and as a position coach as well. And I think it'll be interesting to see kind of how they develop and how they grow throughout the season, and what different things that Singleton and Allen can figure out, because those guys are 2 complete backs, but they still got a little bit of room to work. And I think they're going to be nice little second, third round draft picks, because they're going to have low mileage compared to some of the other guys that are coming out.
Yeah, and I think probably the best thing for them is the expanded wide receiver room. Hopefully, the more capable wide receiver room. Penn State was playing tight. Their offense last year was running backs and tight ends. Corners could cheat, safeties could cheat. You could crash the box a little bit more, and I think if the wide receivers are as productive as we hope, there's less opportunities for them to run. But if the passing game becomes a legitimate threat, if the outside passing game becomes a legitimate threat, if the slot develops and starts taking away linebackers and takes away nickels and takes away eyes in any sort of manner, that's that one tackle that Singleton was getting stopped by. If the slot takes that nickel back out, and that was the guy that tackled Nick Singleton last year, now there's a little bit more opportunity. There's a little more room to run. And I think there's probably less carries for them this year, which is a good thing. Less mileage for us or for them, less chance of injury, which is good for everybody. And yeah, I think yards per carry will probably be up this year, and I'm really hoping for some big home run hitters, because it's kind of what was lacking last year. The big runs didn't come, the explosives didn't come in the run game. And if it was explosive, it was a 15 or a 20-yard carry. There was very few of the 40 plus, the 50 plus that you really like. Those are the game wreckers. Like if you can start breaking if you break 1 or 2 40, 50-yard runs in a game, the defense is going to be a little timid, and they might have to sell out for the run more, and then that just opens up the rest of your offense. So hopefully with the more complementary style of offense that we're expecting due to the increased talent level outside, it just becomes a more prolific offense at all layers and all levels.
The biggest problem last year was the receiving game and the passing game. Obviously, had Tyler Warren, but they had to sell out. The teams had to sell out and stop the run, and they did. and forced them to beat them with Tyler Warren and with the receivers. And more often than not, Penn State was able to get through it. Penn State was far and above the better team in most of their games last season. But when you play that complementary brand of football on the same side of the ball, it only helps out. So I mean, if there's even a remote threat at a deep ball or just keeping the secondary honest, it's going to open doors up, for that running game and for Drew Allard, to kind of feed off it, get into that RPO type of deal, and just kind of keep everybody honest. And that's only going to help Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, whoever and whoever their backup's going to be. That's the biggest thing. If you can get that passing game in a situation where you're going to have some confidence and competence down the field, which is something that they didn't always have last year outside of guys like Tyler Warren, then that's a really good situation for the Penn State offense to be in year 2 under Andy Kotelnicki.
Yeah, certainly. Anytime you can play better complementary football, it's going to be more productive and more lucrative for everybody else. So everybody involved. So hopefully that's the style that we see from this offense this year. And I think we're going to get that. And I think it could be a big year for both Allen and Singleton.
And now we're going to talk about the linebackers on the other side of the football when we come back for this break on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the second segment of the Lasching Out Podcast on Nittany Sports Now Network. My name is Jarrod. He's Kevin. Kevin, the linebackers. This is a room that really wasn't hurt by departures. Kobe King was the lone force on the field that left. But it's a room that is going to be much improved this year just based on being healthy and getting a couple guys in the portal. And one of those guys is Amari Campbell, who came from North Carolina, was a starter down there. He's a junior, 6 foot, 231. He's a guy that could be the signal caller for this defense, and it's year 1 for him at Penn State. And I think that's a big, big compliment to his game and to where he's at, on the field for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, certainly. And I think there was going to be some question marks if there was no Kobe King replacement coming in via the transfer portal. No disrespect to Anthony Specca, but it didn't seem like in his limited action last year. I mean, he's a true sophomore this year, so I just don't think he was ready to be that middle linebacker signal caller. And I think getting Amari Campbell from UNC, and by all accounts, doing well with the transition. And I think the important thing is there's not going to be 3 linebackers on the field anymore. It's going to be a 2 linebacker set. That's just what they're going to run. So, so Kobe King's off in the NFL, 6th round draft pick to the Vikings. And I think the biggest question mark is how does Tony Rojas do with his little bit more freedom as a second linebacker? Does he have a little bit more inside responsibilities? Does he have a little bit more freedom on the field? I think that's probably a good thing to look out for.
It really is. And I think Rojas didn't play last season, fully healthy. It's obviously very hard to play a full season with full health. His shoulder was banged up. But you saw in this SMU game with that interception just how athletic he is and how he can play the game. Rojas is a dude. He's going to have, I think, a really good year. I think he's one of the guys to watch for the Penn State defense. I don't know if he's going to get the green dot or not on the helmet, but he's a guy with some significant experience. Dom DeLuca is another guy as well that's played some significant football for Penn State at a high level. Even if Knowles goes to a 3-3-5 every once in a while, just to mix it up, those guys are going to make a formidable trio. Then you throw in a Dakari Nelson that can play. You throw in a Keon Wiley, guys like that, and then Specca I think is going to take a nice little jump here. I think you're right. He's just a little off. Last year, I don't think he was quite ready. That's a big jump, but the good news is I think he's got the talent, and I think he's going to take that extra step this year. You don't know what you're going to get from LeVar Arrington. The second, I don't know what you're expecting there, or if you can have significant expectations for a freshman like he is. But again, Penn State's in a really good spot with depth and quality depth for the linebacker position. And they got a brand new coach this year in Dan Connor. You know, he was a defensive analyst. I was able to talk to him a little bit yesterday or Tuesday at practice. And, you know, that's a guy that knows everything about linebacker U. He's still the all-time leading tackler. That dude breathes, sleeps, and eats linebacker U in Penn State. And that's a perfect guy, I think, for that position. And I think they're going to learn a lot from him in a much more expanded capacity than the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think LeVar Arrington is probably a massive question mark. Anytime someone comes in and wears the 11 his dad wore, wears the 11 Micah and Abdul both wore. I think it's interesting. He is a true freshman, and he is behind Keon Wiley, and I think he's probably going to be behind Keon Wiley. Keon Wiley's big. He's athletic. He's rangy. Tyler Elsdon graduated. Sorry, Dom DeLuca. I'm blanking tonight. Sorry about that. Dom DeLuca, kind of like you get what you get from him. Kind of a little bit undersized, but he's gritty. Do I want Dom in passing situations on the field? No, probably not. I think he's a little bit just under athletic when it comes to that. So maybe you see Keon in a little bit more of those passing situations. But you know, what has LeVar shown in practice? And I think as a true freshman, there's a lot of room for growth. And you know, is he a red light, yellow light, or green light when it comes to his red shirt? So that's probably a decision we're going to have to look out for. He's certainly probably going to play a lot the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, or probably the first 3 weeks of the season. And holding that fourth game, it's going to be interesting. If he plays in the fourth game, you know he's going to have a role going forward. But if you start seeing him get less snaps, or if you don't see him get any snaps from week 4 onwards, maybe he's looking to redshirt and just maybe waiting for the playoffs to get some experience. So I think week 4 is going to be that critical time. If he doesn't see the field week 4, we kind of know how the season's going to go for him.
Yeah, and it's tough. Again, you know, this is a kid that comes in highly respected. He's a great athlete, and I think that's just going to be one of those deals where they see, you know, where he fits in. You know, everybody has talked about how big of a freak and monster he is in the weight room, which is good, but it's got to be able to translate. I mean, he's 6'3", 219. He's still got a lot of muscle to add as a freshman, and he's going to add that quality muscle throughout the year. So, yeah, he's going to play, I think, some significant football in those first 3 weeks if Penn State is able to handle their business. And then you might see him a little later in the season, but then, you know, obviously the redshirt games don't matter for the postseason, which is huge as far as development goes, and huge for a kid like LeVar Arrington to be able to get that time. But this is an experienced group, and that Penn State defense as a whole is pretty experienced. And we're going to talk about, you know, the O-line and D-line next week. But this is a defensive unit that I think, you know, for how crazy to say this, is only going to get better than they were last year. You know, yeah, they lost Abdul Carter and Smith Vilbert and guys like that. But I think, you know, it's important to note that, you know, Jim Knowles is Jim Knowles, man. Like, that dude won a national championship last year defensively. They made Oregon look completely human. And I think that's a situation that it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how he, you know, develops that defense, you know, moving forward, because I think that's one of those deals where he knows what he's doing. James Franklin's going to let him do his thing. And when he's able to cook, Jim Knowles can absolutely cook.
Yeah, I think I'm excited for the innovation that Jim Knowles brings. And I think linebackers is going to be something because he's only got 2 out there on the field. The Tom Allen defense, it is what it is. I don't think Tom's the most innovative coach out there. I don't think it's groundbreaking to say that. And yeah, you lose Abdul Carter, who was an absolute game wrecker. Kobe King, I think, just progressed so much last year. He was such a great linebacker for Penn State in his senior year. But I'm looking more like the swarming style Manny Diaz defense. Like, I think that's something that you'll see. And we see it every year when Penn State plays Ohio State. Like, Jim Knowles knew how to turn it up. He knew how to pull the levers. He knew how to attack the weak points of an offense. And I think that's what you're excited to see from this defense. And I think that's where it can improve the most, because let's face it, hopefully we're hoping they play a lot of big games this year. Ohio State's obviously a big one, but both of us are expecting a long playoff run. I don't think that's any secret, and the AP poll doesn't say it's any secret either. So there are going to be big games this year, and they're going to need that mind of Jim Knowles to be able to pull those levers. And Amari Campbell being new to the program, is it that big of a deal? Maybe not, because it's a brand new defense. Everybody's on page one. I think Tony Rojas can flourish, especially because hopefully his shoulder's back healthy. I think that was his main ailment last year. So if he can stay healthy, I think he can be almost as good as Abdul Carter. And he's not going to be in a pass rushing situation, but I think he is very rangy and a very capable pass defense linebacker, and he's not afraid to go mix it up in the box either. So
you hit the nail on the head perfectly. With the best thing that happened for Amari Campbell is coming in the first year of the defense. He's able to hit the ground running. It's a new defense for everybody. They've been able to just have seamless transitions from Manny Diaz to Tom Allen. We're going to find out about Jim Knowles soon enough, and we're not going to really see much the first 3 weeks. But when you host Oregon for that whiteout game, you're going to really find out what Penn State's all about. Because that last time that Knowles was against Oregon in the Rose Bowl, man, they made them look awful. And Dylan Gabriel, and that's going to be a completely different Oregon team. And we're going to get into our season preview at a later date. But again, Kevin, the biggest thing is this is a guy that started 13 games for the Tar Heels, 10 and a half tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, and a forced fumble. Those are pretty good stats for a linebacker. Anytime you can get that that type of production, albeit it's in the ACC, it is what it is. But this is a guy that has a lot of football left to play, and he's going to have, I think, a really good year. And when you're talking about guys that James Franklin, mentions by name, Chaz Coleman was the guy. He's a defensive end we'll talk about next week. But he was a guy James Franklin name dropped. When James Franklin name drops you after a practice, something's trending in the right direction. And that's always a telltale sign of what James Franklin thinks about certain players and their status, moving forward. He's going to start for Penn State. Amari Campbell is. And it's going to be interesting to see really how he develops and how his style of play and Tony Rojas' style of play blends with the consistency that is Don DeLuca. DeLuca is a guy that's not ever going to severely hurt you. He's going to help you on the field. He's not kind of like an even keel guy out there. He's not going to make the dumb play. He's going to be patiently aggressive. And that's exactly what you want from a guy like DeLuca. But, they're going to be able to let them cook because with that 4 or 5 guy defensive backfield at the safety and cornerback spot defensively, they're going to be able to be a little bit more aggressive because the middle of the field is going to be covered with the secondary. So, I think they're going to allow them to open up a little bit, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of, how Campbell fits in and the type of success that he and Rojas and DeLuca and guys like that have this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot we can speculate all we want, but until about week 4, when we start seeing how Jim Knowles is going to use these guys, it's kind of an unknown for us, but I'm excited for the unknown. I think, yeah, you said Amari Campbell's getting name dropped already. We know what Tony Rojas is. Tony Rojas was getting name dropped before his first whiteout game or before his first blue-white game. So, he comes in January, and by April, he's getting name dropped by the coach. So 2 very capable guys, both have a lot of talent, both have a lot of positives coming from them, and new position coach, new D coordinator. There's lots of unknowns to be excited about.
Right. And with that said, we're going to go on to the third segment when we come back from this break on the Nittany Sports Now Network. Welcome back to the third and final segment of the Lasching Out Podcast, the Nittany Sports Now Network. He's Kevin. I'm Jarrod. Kevin, Penn State in the AP poll. It's a tale as old as time. They came in second place in the initial AP poll. I think it ranked as low as 6th by the Auburn guy in the AP, which is hilarious given that's the amount of points that Auburn scored in the fourth quarter against Penn State the last time they played. But Penn State's at number 2. I think that's right where they should be. I think, Ohio State probably could be number 1. I think if I were to vote, I would probably flip Ohio State and Texas 1 and 3, just given the fact that it's a completely different season. But Ohio State is still defending national champion, and Texas really hasn't done anything outside of making the college football playoff and that sort of stuff. But again, I think Penn State's in a really good spot. They could be number one after week 4, depending on how things go week 1 or in Columbus.
Yeah, I think Penn State of the top 3, and we'll throw Clemson in there as number 4. 6 teams got a first place vote. Texas leading the way with 25, Penn State with 23. Of the top 3, Penn State is the most defined. Arch Manning hasn't. Did he start one game last year? He's not started 2 full seasons like Drew Aller has. They're up there because of his last name's Manning. He's a very hyped recruit, very hyped player. He's shown flashes, but week 1 they're in the shoe, and he's got to play the SEC schedule. He's going to be under a lot of pressure, and if they can get through the SEC schedule and they get to the playoff and relatively unscathed, we're talking probably lost to Ohio State, and maybe they drop 1 in the SEC, and they're 13-2 heading in, 11-2 heading into the playoff. All right, now Texas has some credibility, but in the preseason you don't know what Arch Manning is going to be. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of unknowns. Penn State offense is very well defined, and then you look at Ohio State. They've got Julian Sayin probably being the starting quarterback there. He's not played at all. I mean, he got some limited action. He's not started any games. There's question marks there. So Penn State being a number 2, great position. I think, could they be number 1? Certainly. They're 5 points behind Texas in the polls. So there's a very slim margin there. And, Texas, Ohio State week 1, I think winner of that game stays number 1. And if Ohio State wins, they're going to jump Penn State. They're going to be number 1. Texas might fall to 3 or 4. If Ohio State loses, who knows how far they fall? It's probably going to depend how competitive it is. But Penn State's poised to be the second-ranked team in the country for at least the first month of the season, as long as they handle business. The first challenge is obviously going to be Oregon at home. But it's exciting. The last number 1 ranked team in the country to go on and win the national championship was Alabama in 2017. Prior to that was USC in 2004, I believe, 2004, 2005, 2004, because it was 2005 Rose Bowl with Vince Young. So there's good news there, and I think number 2 is the most successful preseason. Number 2 in the AP poll in the college football playoff is the most successful, highest conversion rate for national championships. And guess who's Michigan and Ohio State both were number 2 ranked team in the AP poll there the year that they won their national championship. So Big Ten teams being ranked number 2, going on to win the national title. It's happened 2 years in a row. Why not make it 3?
It is, and that's the exciting thing for Penn State. Obviously, you have that whiteout date circled for September 27th. Then you also have that date circled for November 1st in Columbus. That I think is going to be for the number 1 ranking in the country. I think both teams could and should be undefeated going into that matchup. I like Ryan Day's chances against everybody but Michigan. So I mean, I think that's a situation where they're going to go into that game probably, they're both teams undefeated, and that's going to be a battle for the Big Ten and for the national championship. The Big Ten schedule this year for the Big Ten teams is pretty slow. Not pretty slow, but pretty weak. So I mean, there aren't very many big challenging games, and that's the way that it's going to be. The way that the schedule shakes out with these super conferences and things like that. So I mean, Penn State's got to take advantage of that. What I'm worried about for Penn State, and we'll talk about this more on the season preview, is how they react after that Ohio State game. Is it a letdown? If they win, is it they finally reached the mountaintop, right? They finally slayed, their guy, their team, or if they lose, is that the end of the world and does it spiral? So I mean, or do they, does that make them even hungrier, knowing that they're just weeks away from potentially playing in the Big Ten championship game and then playing once again in the college football playoff with hopes and dreams of making it to the national championship game?
Yeah, and Penn State's no stranger to being number 2 or being very highly ranked when they go and play Ohio State. Last year, they're ranked number 3. I think 2023, they were number 2 in the country, if I'm not mistaken. No, they're number 7. In recent seasons, they were ranked number 2, or at least top 5 heading into Ohio State game. Certainly top 5, top 10. But, you get a 1-2 matchup November 1st. I already sent my wife a calendar block for that day. I just said Kevin is busy, 10 a.m. to midnight. I don't know what time the game's going to be. Hopefully Fox doesn't ruin it for us. But, the calendar's blocked off for that one. That's a big date circled on the calendar. And, handle business against Oregon. Stay number 2 until the Ohio State game. I think it goes Ohio State's way against Texas in the first week, just because they are home. Big road game. It's a big stage, and I think that crowd can carry a little bit. Even though some younger Ohio State fans on the artist formerly known as Twitter disagree with the energy of the crowd at times, but we'll see. And I think you made a good point. It's if they do beat Ohio State this year, they're undefeated. Is there a little bit in their mind of like, we finally crossed the hurdle, or are they able to bring it back together and say, all right, that's the first time we've beaten them this season. We're probably going to have to beat them again, or they're at least going to be in the bracket somewhere where we might have to play them again in the 12-team playoff. So hopefully they don't see that as mission completed. They just see it as just another critical step into completing the mission that is ultimately going to be a national title. National title hopes is going to be the mission.
Yeah, and looking ahead at the college football playoff, obviously, the first round games are on campus. Do they get a bye? Do you want to bye? Obviously every team that had a bye lost last year. Excuse me, in the quarterfinals. So I mean, that's something to worry about too. Quarterfinal games: Cotton Bowl, Orange Bowl, Rose Bowl, and Sugar Bowl. Obviously, I don't think they're going to go back to the Orange Bowl. The national championship game is in Miami, and that would be nice. Monday, January 19th. We know how to get down there pretty quickly, pretty cheaply too. Maybe Richmond will have working water that time. But it'll be interesting to kind of see where Penn State ends up. Oh yeah, I had to bring that up.
I said I wouldn't hold your breath. We've had an additional water crisis since then. So
that's great. Selfishly, it would be cool for Penn State to play in the Sugar Bowl. Obviously, that's been a while. But that's a primetime game finally. It's on New Year's Day. You finally have your significant games on actual New Year's Day. And then they get the Fiesta Bowl and the Peach Bowl. So for the semifinals, which they were in the Fiesta Bowl last year. So I'm thinking that Penn State's probably going to be Sugar Bowl, Peach Bowl, could potentially be in the national championship, depending on how that bracket lines up. But this is the year, man. And we'll talk about this a little bit more here in the next few weeks. But number 2 ranking in the AP, number 3, I think, in the coaches poll. This is the year that it's all going to come together for James Franklin and company. And this is probably the best they've been equipped to do so since that 2017 season when they ended up in the Fiesta Bowl against Washington.
Yeah, you have the straight seeding for 2025. So you go in as number 1 seed. Hopefully you are getting the straight seeding there. Last year was a little bit of an anomaly. And then, it would be cool to go back to the Sugar Bowl. That's where they won the national title for the 1982 season. So it would be fitting that, they break almost a 40-year drought for national titles. And one of their playoff games is at the Sugar Bowl en route to winning that. So a lot of cool storylines that could happen, but that's just the preseason rankings. You and I have said it many a time on this show. The preseason rankings don't matter. It's just cool, fun thing to talk about. And, they're getting first place votes. They're in touching distance of Texas, but that ranking doesn't matter until November 1st. Or the Monday after November 1st.
Right. And we do talk about that so many different times, but really that ranking doesn't matter till the end of the season. Where are you going to end up? You've got game 1, August 30th against Nevada. And then you got Pitbull University and Florida International. And then you got Villanova. The good news for Penn State is that they get the bye week before Oregon, and they get a bye week before Ohio State. Who can make those adjustments? Who can make those things make it happen? And for Penn State, this has got to be the year. But for right now in the Lasching Out Podcast, Kevin, we've reached that point. Do you have any parting shots?
I've gone hard the last couple weeks. My Pirates rant would stay for this week again, and I've just given up all hope on them. I'm very dejected on my parting shot this week, but the Pirates got me down. It's been a little rough series against Milwaukee and just abysmal showing at the trade deadline. So I was really happy that, famous Pittsburgh podcaster and columnist and sports writer Dejan Kovacic was going to stop his daily Pirates podcast. He threatened it, and then over the weekend, enough people wrote him and convinced him to continue doing it. But I thought that was finally going to be the push that we needed, we being the fan base, to get some real ownership attention. But that guy doesn't give a crap about anybody but the money padding his pockets.
Good luck. And as somebody that has has checks with his name on it, that's a very good statement for somebody that doesn't have.
You'll abstain from comments.
Yeah, it's a tough spot because I see the minor league system and I see I see things a little bit differently than maybe the normal fan. But it is life. But if you're letting the Pirates dictate your happiness, I think that's on you, because you should know better.
I got my hopes up, but there's no GM that can build a high A ball club like Ben Jarrington. Nobody better.
Well, the high A ball club is the best in minor league baseball right now. So
that's awesome. Half of them
that doesn't win games in the major league level.
80% of them won't make it to the major league. So
yeah.
I don't understand why Connor Griffin's not at AA yet, AAA yet.
That would be perfect for you. They're in Richmond this week.
Yeah, Altuna's in Richmond this week. Connor Griffin, I was hoping was going to be in AA, so I could go watch him play some baseball. And guess what? They don't care to promote him. I think he's batting like 370 in high A. Like, get that man.
I think he'll be up for the next series. I think he'll be promoted Sunday after Greensboro's game, and then they'll send him to Altoona, where he'll finish the year, and then he'll probably start there next year. At least that's my hope, and then that gives me at least something to write about for the next 3 weeks as their season wraps up and football begins to ramp up.
I think he's good enough to go straight to Indianapolis next year.
He could be, but he's also only 19. So, I mean, you have to –
It don't matter. Get him to the
bigs. Patient.
Give him the Bryce Harper treatment. Get him to the bigs.
We shall see. And much like minor league baseball development, college football development is about the same. We'll see how it goes. That's why they play the game, and we'll see in August 30th, what's going on. But for Kevin Quigley, Jarrod Prugar, this has been the Lasching Out Podcast on the Nittany Sports Now Network. We appreciate you, as always, for listening.